Hey everyone, my name is Kirsten. Welcome to my channel, and I am an expat, and I also do travel consultations to help primarily Black women solo travel, move abroad, and thrive abroad. And in this video, I'm going to share with you some solo traveling safety tips that I personally have learned through my experience traveling in Medellin, Colombia. So first I want to tell you a little bit about my trip to Medellin, Colombia. I believe I went in the summer of 2018. And the interesting thing about it is when I first went, or before I went, I had two pieces of advice. I had people that were from the States that had never been to Colombia, let alone Medellin, telling me because they had watched Narcos, because they were unfamiliar with that country, they were very cautious and they were worried about me going. And then I spoke to people at the time before my trip, I was living in Panama, and all my friends that lived in Panama, both American, Panamanian, Venezuelan, European, all told me, yes, go to Medellin. It is great. It's wonderful. You're going to have a good time. So I went. But I made some mistakes along the way, and these are the things that I learned that helped keep me safe during this time. So my tip number one is before you go anywhere, talk to people who've actually been there and have visited the place. So this can look like a lot of different things. This can look like going into a Facebook group and asking people questions about their trip to whichever destination. This can literally be reaching out to your circle of friends, the people that have traveled. This can also be visiting people's YouTube channels like mine and leaving a comment if you have any questions about Medellin or a certain destination that you see me talking about. So this is probably going to sound like a rookie mistake, and this is probably something you might have already thought of before. If not, then please remember this advice. But when I was in Medellin, I ended up taking the wrong bus, which usually happens to me quite often when I travel, and I ended up in this unfamiliar part of town. And so I was struggling to find my way back, and I hit a major problem, which was my phone died. And so tip number two is to have some backup battery or have some way to charge your phone, or have maybe even like a second phone or some type of second communication device in case something happens to your phone. I know that our phones are our lives and we put so much on them, but something simple as just knowing to have a backup charger or carrying your charger with you so that you can plug it can really make the difference, especially if you get lost and you need to pull up Google Maps. In addition to that, try to download Google Maps because they have a feature where you can use Google Maps offline, and that can also help you in a situation or an event when you get lost. If you're enjoying this content and finding these tips helpful, make sure that you click the like button and subscribe for more advice and tips on solo traveling, living abroad, and moving abroad. Okay, so after I got lost. I ended up asking people where to go, and I ended up taking a bus back into town, close to where I lived, but not exactly where I lived. And so I ended up taking a taxi back to my place, which brings me to the subsequent points or tips that I want to make. One, when you are staying in a place, especially if you're staying at an Airbnb or if you're staying even in a hostel sometimes, if you're by yourself, especially when you get dropped off, whether it's through a taxi, whether it's Uber or whatever rideshare app or taxi type app that you're using, don't give your exact location. I always tend to get dropped off. I always try to find like a landmark location, a park, a museum, something close by to where I live that's no more than maybe 5 minutes away from where I'm staying. And I always give that direction to the taxi driver, whoever is taking me. It's also very helpful if you get lost and your phone dies and you don't have your address on you. And that brings me to another tip that I want to say is write down your address. Again, we don't know what might happen to our phones. Our phones might die. There might be a glitch in the system. We might lose our phone. It might get stolen. I have gotten my phone stolen before while traveling. And so it's always a really good idea to write down your address of where you are staying. So those are a few of the solo tips that I have used when I went to Medellin, Colombia. If you are traveling there or if you plan on traveling there in the near future, I highly suggest checking out Comuna 13 or Comuna 13. It is a wonderful, vibrant, lively place that tells so much of the history of Colombia, what they went through, and how they overcame such a violent past. You can do walking tours with guides that do guides in English and Spanish, and you can also just walk through and give yourself a self tour if you want. But I highly suggest visiting Medellin. It is safe. Not every area is safe, but I come from LA and I'm very aware that not every part of a city is safe. But when you are vigilant, when you're aware of your environment and you are smart, it's very easy to stay safe while solo traveling. So leave in the comments below if you are interested in visiting Medellin, Colombia. I've also visited Cartagena and spent a little bit of time in Bogota, but not that much to really consider it a trip. But let me know if Colombia is on your bucket list of places to travel, and let me know if you have any further questions about traveling in Colombia or Central and South America. Ciao for now.